Hi, good afternoon. I'm LDB, Linda Del Bosque with Chicago Latina Magazine. We're a publication serving the Cook County for Latina women who are actually looking to advance a career, the opportunity for small business, as well as provide more information for a more advanced family. Today we have Brandon Johnson. How are you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing well, and thanks for having me.
And Brandon, you are running for a candidate position for the mayoral election that's currently happening right now on April 4th, correct?
That is correct. I've served as Cook County Commissioner for the last 4 years. I was recently re-elected, and I'm looking forward to becoming the next mayor of the city of Chicago.
All right. Well, I'd like to get to some nitty gritty questions really quick for our viewers and our readers because they really want to know more about you. So, due to the repercussions of slavery and systematic racism, how will you lead Chicago to redirect the efforts to provide security for homelessness, affordable housing, to prevent future homelessness, and social services?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So over 15 years ago, I started teaching in the Chicago public schools, middle school, and I was a social studies teacher. So this question is actually quite powerful because when the emancipation took place, there were five basic demands: education, housing, transportation, good paying jobs, and healthcare. And we haven't moved too far away from those demands for those who were formerly enslaved. And one of the opportunities we have to do in this moment is deal with the housing dynamic. We have over 65,000 people in the city of Chicago that are unhoused, of which 20,000 of those individuals are students. And so you can't call yourself a world-class city when you have that type of crisis. And so there's a major ordinance that I'm going to pass within the first 100 days of my administration. It's called Bring Chicago Home. That's going to raise hundreds of millions of dollars to deal with the housing epidemic that we are experiencing right now. And so we're going to build out more affordable housing because it's becoming increasingly more unaffordable, not just in Chicago, but cities across this country. We're also going to commit to public housing. You know, when public housing was destroyed, I mentioned that I started teaching in Chicago over 15 years ago. I started teaching in Cabrini Green, one of the most prolific dynamic public housing spaces in the world. And those homes were destroyed and disrupted. The community has been disinvested in and has not recovered for the people who once were there. And so what I'm committed to doing is making sure that we are building more public housing as well. And then third, a pathway to home ownership. In order to create generational wealth in this country, home ownership is a vehicle in a pathway to do that. When my wife and I purchased our first home nearly 15 years ago, we needed two government assistance programs to help us have a down payment to purchase that home. We had a combined income of $80,000, 6 degrees between the two of us, and we still needed that type of assistance. And so I'm very much committed to disrupting the generational failures that have left families behind by specifically investing in housing, affordable housing, public housing, and a pathway to home ownership.
Well, that is wonderful because we do see a large gap in home security. We do see, unfortunately, we do see a large number of young men that are actually they're out of the foster system and they're homeless, right? Which creates barriers even more for resources. And we all know it really has to do with what we're doing in the city. What type of impact are we doing with our budgets? So when you're looking at allocating the budgets to do this, what do you think the number one thing that we need to focus on is it, because we have a large budget, obviously. So going into that planning, is there something as a Chicago mayor that you're bringing as a candidate that you're going to remove or add to a budget besides housing?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and thank you for lifting up, families who have gone through foster care. My mother and father raised all 10 of us in a home with one bathroom, but my parents were also foster parents, and so many of my siblings and extended siblings are the result of my parents helping to raise other children in the families. And so, when we talk about in critical investments, I've released a budget plan that speak to our values. We have a structural deficit that was caused in the 90s when I was in high school by the failures of the particular person that I'm running against or who's running against me. And so I'm going to eliminate that structural deficit that he caused. $2.5 billion in additional property taxes that we've had to pay because of those failures. We're going to eliminate that structural deficit, and we're going to make sure that we're making critical investments up to $1 billion in my first term. And we're going to do all of that without raising property taxes. As you know, on the southwest side of Chicago, particularly in the Latin community. They've been hit hard by property tax assessments and increases in fees. And so that investment that I'm going to make is to make sure that we are fully funding our neighborhood schools, making sure that we have reliable, safe public transportation, but also making sure that we are investing in mental health care services, because there's a loss of mental health services because of the previous administration that shut down mental health centers. I'll reopen them. They're going to be publicly funded and supported. And these are the type of investments that I know that can lead towards a better, stronger, safer Chicago. Of course, our parks and recreations, youth employment. I'm going to double the amount of young people that we hire, because there's a direct correlation between youth employment and violence reduction. And so my budget is going to actually speak to what works. And we're going to do all that without balancing the budget off of the backs of working people.
Which is so important, because we know that homelessness stems from mental health. That's where chronic homelessness stems from. Care management, case management, social services were taken away from our city, which leads to, us having a deficit, higher crime. We have more panhandling, but we really need to take care of our community and our neighbors. And that's where I believe that we do need to focus on. But one of our last questions you speak about is healthcare for all. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, and that includes mental health care. When I talk about healthcare for all, let me just lay that out right away. And that healthcare has to be a human right. Many people talk about how, don't take politics personal, except for when politics harms you, right? How do you not take it personal when the politics and the positions that people have taken, the policies that have been moved, have harmed people? And I have a real personal connection to healthcare and mental health care. I have my older brother who was my hero, but he had untreated trauma, and he was one of those individuals that died addicted and unhoused. Absent mental health care related services versus criminalizing addiction and mental health challenges, we have to be investing in our overall health care. My father, I mentioned, if I haven't mentioned, he's a part of the working class. And when my father lost his job temporarily, we lost our health insurance, and my mother was suffering from a rare heart disease, and she died as a result of us just not having access to health care. And so when we talk about health care, I'm talking about it from a very personal place, that we should not have to have a W-2 in order to access a basic human right. And that's why I'm going to work with Tony Preckwinkle, the president of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, find ways in which we can collaborate our services, making sure that we are actually reducing and cutting the cost to healthcare and making it a guaranteed right. And we can do that by expanding our mental health clinics and collaborating collectively with Cook County government, but also expanding our healthcare services. We have on the County Board of Commissioners, Cook County Care. It's called County Care. In my time as a Cook County Commissioner, we've expanded county care. 40,000 additional families had access to health care as a result of the work that I've done on the county board. Now we are serving over 400,000 families with insurance that Cook County government is assisting in providing. And so that is the type of dynamic that we have to create as a government. Healthcare as a human right not only provides the type of health provisions that are needed to keep people healthy, but it actually reduces costs from corporations and businesses that want to hire people, which we want them to do. We can eliminate some of that burden that many of these companies endure because of the rising cost of healthcare. Government can actually participate in providing the type of services, particularly healthcare services and mental health care services, that will help create sustainability and a better quality of life. And we can actually reduce the cost that corporations have to contribute to salaries because we're providing it as a basic human right. So it's very much, as you can tell, something I deeply believe in. And I believe that we can save lives by simply offering something that should be a human right. Yeah, well, thank you. And definitely happy International Women's Day. I'm so proud to have the support of many working people in labor that overwhelmingly represent and make up Black and brown women. So again, happy International Women's Day. And thank you very much. This has been a great conversation.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And we wish you the best. Onward, April 4th, Election Day. Brandon Johnson. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.